How consciousness and coincidence intersect. There are things we can't understand, and why that's okay. We should know that we know nothing. Well, at least we don't even begin to know everything that goes on between heaven and earth, this world and the next. Almost everyone comes to a point in their lives where their logical consciousness has to take leave for a brief moment to make way for a hunch, a feeling, or a kind of vision. Depending on how open we are to the metaphysical, we may find such occurrences easier or more difficult to accept. Not everything that is inexplicable actually has to be. Sometimes we just don't see the logical explanation for it. We have the creator of the great Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, to thank for the following insight into these strange moments. When all incorrect possibilities have been refuted, the explanation that remains must be correct, no matter how improbable it sounds. And in the course of our lives, there are many things that seem unlikely to us that we cannot counter with reason and rationality. So it's high time we looked at the intersection of experiences where consciousness and coincidence, knowledge and belief, reality and conjecture go hand in hand. 1. How reliable is our consciousness? Let's start with the facts that are scientifically verifiable and can be proven at any time. We owe our consciousness primarily to our 5 senses: eyes, ears, the sense of touch, smell, and taste. Strictly speaking, there is also the sense of balance, which we tend to forget in everyday life. Our brain is responsible for processing our first impressions. It can check the value of information in a fraction of a second and store it accordingly, or simply filter it and declare it unimportant. Everyone goes through their world and experiences their impressions of it. However, things get interesting when several people are asked to describe one and the same experience, as is the case when witnesses are questioned about a crime. In a nutshell, you could say, 10 different people report 10 different versions of the same experience. In most cases, not even the personal descriptions match. Another example is colors and tastes. What one person sees as red, another sees as orange or pink. If a dish in a restaurant tastes too hot or too flat to one person, it may taste too hot or too flat to the next. The impressions that impose themselves on our consciousness can be completely different for our fellow human beings. Perception is therefore a highly subjective matter that is as individual as people themselves are. 2. What does our unconscious contribute? Surprisingly, a large part of our communication has nothing to do with what is said, heard, written, or understood. Words are an important vehicle in the interpersonal sphere, the bridge, so to speak, that we build from person to person by means of language. However, what arrives at the other end is subject to a variety of different factors. On the one hand, the pitch and tone of voice determine how what we say is perceived by the other person. Irony, sarcasm, cynicism, and black humor should be mentioned here. You can't always recognize them clearly and call them by name, but our feelings tell us reliably if what is being said is not to be understood literally, or at least has an aftertaste. Body language also plays a role. If it deviates from the nice words that people want to sell to us at face value, our subconscious also notices this. Facial expressions, gestures, posture, and eye contact are the main indicators that can be both revealing and informative. Last but not least, sympathy plays a major role, which may or may not exist between two dialogue partners. If we feel respected and on an equal footing, all is well. But don't let our fine antennae detect arrogance, patronizing nuances, or a joke at our expense. We could be promised the moon and we wouldn't give a damn. Our intuition and gut feeling are unbeatable when it comes to recognizing false notes, no matter how masterfully and virtuously they are packaged to sell them to us. 3. There are no coincidences, are there? In addition to the conscious and subconscious mind, a third invisible force often interferes with our perception, which we commonly refer to as coincidence. How practical! That's what we sometimes think when a lucky coincidence just happens out of the blue. We meet the right people at exactly the right time, don't we? When we talk about coincidence, something falls into our laps that we urgently need. How does it come about? Who knows exactly? Those who are spiritually grounded immediately think of the law of attraction. We get what we want when we need it. The more advanced among us also speak of synchronicities, which are a clear sign from the universe or from God Himself that we are on the right path and not on the wrong one. So far, so good. Our gut feeling would have made a similar decision. However, some events are so unbelievable that we really and truly cannot help but believe that there is an invisible hand at play guiding our destiny. 4. Luck in misfortune. How many stories of people do we know, and perhaps have experienced ourselves, that bear witness to incredible luck? Accidents where only fractions of a second have decided life or death in our favor. Miraculous rescues and healings that cannot be explained medically. How often does a hunch make us take a detour that turns out to be a real stroke of luck? How often in life, and here we can only speculate, has a no to a person or a project been the greatest blessing that has happened to us? Anyone who has ever stood on the threshold of death, come face to face with the end of their days, or otherwise had such enormous luck on their side that it is difficult to describe in words, knows what a mystical experience means. We modern people hesitate to use the word miracle to describe it, but it probably was and is exactly that. Sometimes powers reign in our enlightened world that cannot be explained by physics or other natural laws. This is where science ends. This is where faith begins. Unfortunately, stories from this area are not nearly as convincing as what we have experienced firsthand. But we can confidently assume that we all have our share of supernatural phenomena. The higher powers do not leave us in the dark about their existence, what we know and what we must believe. Many things in life are a fact. Many things happen that we cannot explain with words, formulas, or laws. Some things will always be hidden from our logic and understanding, no matter how hard research in all disciplines tries to make progress. We will not be able to escape the strange coincidences, odd occurrences, and moments that give us goosebumps. There are things between heaven and earth that cannot be recognized with our five senses. Nevertheless, they are there,